Number 10. Death from above. A kayaker has been hospitalized in South Carolina after a rattlesnake fell out of a tree and bit him. That is about the scariest thing I could imagine happening on a calm day rowing on the river. It all happened in Colton County when a group of friends decided to go on a Saturday kayaking trip. The expectation was a bit of excitement, some fresh air, and a good dose of nature. Well, one of the kayakers, 28-year-old Michael Adams, got a bit more nature than he bargained for when the rattlesnake landed directly on the front of his kayak and then bit him twice on the hand when he grabbed it. That was foolish, as he probably should have tried to shoo it into the water with his paddle. But he was probably panicking and grabbed it without thinking. He was bitten and began to feel woozy before one of his nearby friends was able to knock the rattlesnake off the boat. Being bitten by a rattlesnake is bad news. Being bitten by a rattlesnake multiple times is a nightmare. This guy had to get transported by his friends using their kayaks back to a safe area on dry land before they could even call 911. It then took ages for the ambulance to arrive, and even longer before he was able to get administered into the intensive care unit and given antivenom. According to CBS News, the man's condition deteriorated dramatically en route to the hospital. He was in bad condition and needed to be transferred the next day to the Medical University of South Carolina. Let that be a lesson to everyone. Stay away from rattlesnakes. Number 9. When pythons attack. Two young brothers, Connor and Noah Barth, were fast asleep when a vicious 15-foot or 4.6-meter python slithered across their necks and strangled them to death. That's a story that would terrify anyone and give you nightmares just imagining it. The kids never saw it coming. But here's where the deaths get really crazy. The kids were staying overnight at a friend's apartment. That apartment was above a pet shop. On the night of the sleepover, an African rock python escaped its cage, got into the ventilation system, and found its way into the children's bed. This is obviously tragic. The man who runs the Reptile Ocean store lived in the apartment. The victims were his friend's children and would often spend the night. But he never expected in a million years to wake up first thing in the morning and find the boys dead with a snake curled up in a nearby corner. He quickly caged the snake and called 911. Then he had to make the hardest phone call of his life, telling his friend that their children were dead. All because of an escaped python that he owned. He did later go to trial for criminal negligence, but was found not guilty and walked free. Do you think this man should have been sentenced to time in prison? Why or why not? He had kept the snake safely in a locked cage for years without incidents like this ever before. Was the verdict right or wrong? Let me know in the comments below. By the way, remember to subscribe to Talltanic if you haven't already. Number 8. Camping gone wrong. A man from Missouri went on a camping trip. He was bitten by a copperhead snake while tenting near the Current River. But he didn't die right away. It's not really clear what the identified man was thinking. He got bitten by the copperhead snake and then complained about chest pain a full day later before dying from a heart attack. It's highly likely that his encounter with the snake had something to do with it. The thing is that people don't really die from snake bites in Missouri. Between 1933 and 2021, there have only been 3 recorded deaths related to venomous snakes. The man probably got bitten and didn't think it was a big deal. But according to the deputy coroner in Carter County, the snake venom definitely contributed to his death. It likely hastened the heart attack, either from the venom itself or from the man's alarm and adrenaline after being chomped by a big, hungry serpent. Number 7. The Zookeeper. In California, a zookeeper recently had a very close call with a large and deadly snake after nearly biting off his face. This particular incident was caught on video and uploaded to the victim's Instagram account. Jay Brewer runs the Reptile Zoo. He is no stranger to things with scales and things that slither. And yet, he almost wound up losing all the skin on his face after the angry python tried sinking its fangs into his eyes. Judging by the video, the python was upwards of 20 feet, maybe even 25, that's 8 meters, and probably over 200 pounds or 90 kilograms. It looked like a prehistoric monster. The attack happened in the split second that Jay took his eyes off the python. It sensed he was looking away and pounced. Would you ever take your eyes off of a giant python if it was near enough to attack you? I hope not. Now, Jay was able to dodge the brunt of the attack. After all, this guy works with snakes that want to eat him all day. Still, he said himself that it was one of the closest encounters he's ever had. He's lucky to still have a nose. Number 6. Snake to the face. Firefighters in Ohio came to the rescue of a woman who was being attacked by her own pet boa constrictor after it wrapped itself around her neck, tried to choke her to death, and repeatedly bit her in the face. Unlike Jay Brewer from the reptile zoo, this poor woman was unable to evade the attack. She's just lucky that her boa constrictor was only 5 feet or 1.5 meters long. The most horrifying thing about this poor woman's plight is the 911 call she made to the dispatch. She phoned 911 and then told them that she had a snake stuck to her face. She then pleaded for an ambulance to save her for over 2 minutes, while she told the 911 operator that the snake was biting her face repeatedly and there was blood everywhere, and that she couldn't get the angry reptile off. In the end, firefighters had to cut the head off of the snake to get it off the poor woman's face. The snake was then tossed into a dumpster out in front of City Hall, and the woman was taken to the hospital to be treated for her injuries. Stories like this make me wonder why people even bother owning snakes in the first place. Wouldn't a nice goldfish be better? What do you think? Number 5. Mama to the rescue. In a shocking video posted by National Geographic, a brave mother rat saved her baby from a terrifying snake attack. Humans are not the only ones who can be bullied by evil snakes. The whole animal kingdom is in danger of these voracious predators. And while people may think of rats as being gross disease spreaders, a mama rat is nothing to mess with. The battle was caught on video in Italy. The snake snatched the baby rat into its jaws and tried to slither away with it, only to be brutally attacked by the rat's mother. Shockingly, the rat managed to take down the non-venomous racer snake and chase it away from the area, forcing it to drop her baby from its jaws. The snake vanished into the bushes, and the mama rat rescued her little one and took off in the other direction, no doubt leaving everyone involved traumatized. Could you imagine fighting off a giant dinosaur or a dragon to save your child? That's essentially what this rat did. Hats off to her. Number 4. Snake in the toilet. A teenager in Thailand has experienced the worst nightmare imaginable. Be prepared for what comes next, because what you're about to hear is graphic and disturbing. It all happened when the 18-year-old boy sat down on the toilet to do his business. When he looked down between his legs, he saw a snake inside the toilet bowl. An instant later, he felt a searing pain in his groin. The python had clamped its jaws around his genitalia. I know you're probably grimacing just thinking about something so horrible. The young man stood up with the snake still attached to him and, thinking quickly, slammed the snake in the door to get it to release its grip. The snake fell off and slithered away. But now the boy was standing in the bathroom with blood all over his legs and groin and his pants around his ankles. And much to his dismay, the snake slithered right back into the toilet bowl. Emergency services rushed the young boy to the hospital, at which point he was stitched up and sterilized. Lucky for the teen, the doctor said his injured body part would be back to normal in no time. According to the New York Post, this isn't even the first time that someone in Thailand has been bitten by a snake while sitting on the toilet. A similar thing happened the January before this incident, with a Thai woman being hospitalized after a snake chomped onto her thigh as she was sitting down to do her business. Number 3. Snake nightmares. A mother in Australia woke up to find her son screaming and a giant snake wrapped around his stomach. Apparently, the 6-year-old boy had been targeted in his sleep by the sneaky snake. It wrapped itself around him and began biting him relentlessly in the face, prompting him to scream and wake his mother. The encounter involved a coastal carpet python that measured around 8 feet or 2.5 meters in length. Brian Robinson, wildlife management specialist for Queensland Fauna Consultancy, said it was a very unusual scenario because snakes almost exclusively bite in self-defense. But this snake went out of its way to bite the young boy in his sleep. Brian says the child could have rolled over onto the reptile, making it lash out at him angrily. But really, the big question here is why the snake was in the kid's bed at all. I guess the only answer is Australia, the one place on Earth where not even sleeping boys in their beds are safe from snakes. And yes, the boy did survive. The boy's family ripped the snake off of him and then disposed of it. Number 2. Attack of the Furlance. A well-known conservationist from New Zealand named Peter Bethune was recently given treatment for a near-fatal attack that he received in the Costa Rican jungle. Peter was bitten by one of the deadliest snakes in all of Central America. It was a Furlance snake. This snake is a type of viper and is wildly venomous. It can grow up to 7 feet long, or 2.2 meters, and a single bite is fatal to humans if they don't receive immediate medical attention. Lucky for Peter, he was treated by one of the best snakebite experts in the world. But even though he got to the hospital quickly and got treatment immediately, he was still left with only 50% usage of his calf where the snake bit him. He also developed a rash that wouldn't seem to go away and had an endless throbbing in his leg that prevented him from sleeping. It took at least 5 days just to try and expel most of the venom from his liver and kidneys. And even when he does fully recover, he will have muscle damage for the rest of his life. What makes this extra tragic is that Peter has spent most of his life in the jungle fighting poachers and illegal miners. And it was while working to protect the Costa Rican jungle that one of the very creatures he's fighting for attacked and nearly killed him. Number 1. Attack of the Headless Snake. In a shocking turn of events, a headless snake on an Australian beach tried to attack a man and his dog. The unidentified man came across the headless serpent and filmed himself poking it with a tennis racket. This is understandable, considering the snake didn't have a head and he didn't expect it to try and bite him. But, to his horror, the reptile stirred at the touch of the racket and began slithering directly at the man. Of course, it had no fangs to bite with, but it was still pretty terrifying being hunted by something without a head. That's certainly something straight out of a nightmare. The snake swayed back and forth, moving forward as if trying to sense where the man was. Luckily, the snake was definitely no danger to anybody. Its head had clearly been ripped right off, with experts claiming it was probably eaten by a bird and then dropped on the beach. Snakes are able to live for several hours even without their heads because they don't need that much oxygen. Unlike other animals who would die immediately without oxygen being pumped into their brains, snakes hold on just a little bit longer. You have to admit though, that's gotta be a pretty miserable way to go. Sliding around on the beach without a head, just waiting to die? What's your scariest encounter with a snake? Let me know in the comments, and thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit subscribe for all the latest videos from Talltanic.